Hello everyone, welcome to the live analysis of All India Endeavour Open Mock Cat 8. So, myself Jamin Shah, let us begin with the analysis of LRDI section. So, as usual, I will take you through each set one after the another, and we will see what could have been the best strategy to attempt this particular paper, and at the end we will look at the cutoffs and the percentile versus marks mapping. So the first set seems to be very lengthy. It was lots of data available. You need to scroll up and down. Okay. So ideally, if you look at a smart exam taker, would not have attempted this set, but if you want to attempt this set, then probably 10 minutes is something that you should be spending. Anything more than 10 minutes on this set would be uh, you know would not be appreciated here. Okay, now basically in this set you had to play with lots of information, like there was there are people who are going from one stop to another stop, and the price of the tickets were also given. Some information with respect to the price is given to you, and then at the top you read there are 6 people, and then the 8 points says there is Abhimanyu also. There is no name of Abhimanyu. So very crucial information. The 8 point which said it was very crucial information to get this set done, to get this set correct. Okay, so 10 minutes, but still this is the proper, 6 people are there, and you just have to arrange them in order, and which stop they are getting. They're getting off the bus. That is what you have to map. So it was not really a difficult one, but I would rate this as a moderate difficult level. Maybe if you are targeting 3 set, should have skipped it. Maybe you're targeting 4 or 5 set. Maybe someone is aiming at 9900 percentile. This set was must do. Now looking at the next, coming to the next set. Now this was the set. Even if you are 100 percentiler, probably you would have skipped the set, because again the data given here was bigger than the data which was there in the previous set. This is the half info. This is just the half the data. The points, the information, there are 8 9 points which I have shown here. Okay, so this set was basically to deal with, there are 6 contestants and they are playing a buzzer round, and the points that they can score is, you can score either a 3 point, or if they go wrong they can score -1. And then if they attempt a question which was passed by someone, they get a 2 point. And some conditions were given, x many, so many wrong attempts, so many correct attempts. These are the scores of the people. And then you have to play with numbers. You have to apply maths, try different trial and permutation and combination. It could take little more time than the previous set, and ideally should not have been attempted. Probably 11 to 12 minutes could have been a ideal attempt for an average student here to solve this set. Okay, someone who is good with numbers and good with the instinct probably could have attempted in 9 or 9 10 minutes. Okay, now if I look at this set, now this set, I mean, most of you would have seen this similar set earlier, but the only catch here was, if you look at the last statement, assume that an older child always weigh more than the younger child. So the relation between age and weight was given. There was no relation with aptitude index, and hence the first two questions dealt with, finding the maximum and the minimum possible overlap. Okay, so the moment you read the first second question, you realize that why are they asking you maximum minimum, and then again you go back to read the set again, and then you realize, oh, so aptitude index condition is not given to us. Okay, so otherwise there are four questions were very pretty straightforward, and probably 6 to 7 minutes, 6 7 minutes, could have been, could have been solved. I mean, there was no, you don't have to write anything. Everything could have been done orally, except for the last question where you have to calculate percentage. Even that could have been, I mean, could some student could have managed orally that also. I mean, not very difficult numbers to deal with. It was, I think, some 40 upon 60 something, right? So was a manageable set, was must attempt, I would say. This is a set that most of you have definitely seen earlier, and hence this becomes a must attempt. You cannot tend to go a single question wrong in this set, in this particular set, basically. Now if you look at the next question, a basic simple, circular arrangement kind of thing. I mean, though it's a rectangular arrangement, but rectangular is nothing but as treated as a circular arrangement, right? Now, most of you would, feel this, would have seen this set as a shocker, because you never expect such set in cat. But then you never know, guys. You never know. Cat always throws surprises. Okay, and now, the time duration, because the time duration has gone down, there might be a possibility that that might be a question on arrangement, basic arrangement, because cat used to ask such questions 4 5 years back. Okay, so you should expect such set. And now, this is not very very straightforward, because there are four people who are facing outside and four people who are facing inside, so it becomes tricky. And at the same time, you also need to map which of the eight friends are have different cars. So it was not only arrangement, it was also, you can say, it was arrangement plus puzzle kind of a question. But again, spending 7 8 minutes, you need concentration here, because some of them are facing outside inside, that makes little tricky. But again, a well prepared student, I don't think should spend more than 8 minutes to solve the set. I mean, the moment you solve the set, I mean, four questions can be attempted in probably a minute. I mean, because there was hardly any conditional question. Any, the entire set could be solved. There was no condition involved here. Okay, so this was again second set, which was must attempt by anyone who is aiming at maybe 80 percentile or 90 percentile or maybe 99 percentile. This was a must attempt. Now coming to the set, most of the students would have skipped the set just by looking at it. Some network is given and there is some table given to you, and would have skipped it. But believe me, guys, I mean, if you would have attempted this set was again should have been attempted. If you're aiming at 99 percentile, this was something that you should definitely attempt it. If not all questions, at least the first two questions, you read the set in 2 minutes, and believe me, the first two questions could be solved in 1 minute each. So probably 4 minutes into the set and you are through to the first and second question, and maybe 4 more minutes to solve the next four questions. So let's say if you're not solving the entire set, even if you read the set and you read the first second question, the first question was how much time it takes to complete the project. It was as easy, the highest time, whether it is AC, ADF or BEG, you need to just calculate the highest time. Okay, and the second question was what could be the ideal cost of completing the project. So again, it's given here 500 rupees per day, 19 days, and multiply by 500 and simply you add all of them. So hardly it takes any time. It hardly takes time to solve the first two questions. So the earlier two said that is 8 questions plus, at least if I say two questions, that you are at 10 questions. Okay, you are at 10 questions. And maybe someone could have attempted the entire set, maybe at 12 questions. Now coming to this set, I would say, this was a smartly put data. Here, there was the bar graph was a stacked bar graph, and you have to compare, you have to find a relation, like who could be the three people, okay, who would have the equal salaries. So if you understand the logic of stack bar graph, okay, if you know how, how the stack bar graph to be treated, and what are the tricks involved in the stack bar graph, such questions can be done very fast. Okay, there were only three questions, not four questions. It was not a four question set, obviously, because once you correct the stack bar graph, the set becomes very easy. So probably 8 minutes and three questions, 8 minutes and three questions. Why 8 minutes? Because you need to frame an equation and I understand, what could be the relation between the amount spent on rent, food, and entertainment, looking at the five people, right? So it was not very straightforward, but yes, probably 4 to 5 minutes and could have understood, who are the three people spending equal salaries, and the amount spent on rent, food, and entertainment could have been understood. Great. And after probably after 4 5 minutes, 1 minute per question, that should have been enough. Now the last set, most of the students would have literally skipped the set because there were only two questions, and there was some information given about, there was some movement from click plus to hello to head and shoulder. And guys, you would laugh, you would laugh at yourself when you look at the solution, when you solve this set again. There was nothing to do with the data given. There was nothing to do with the data. It was everything with respect to this table. And the question was very straightforward. It was simply asking you about the percentage increase and percentage decrease. That's it. And that is why there was only two questions, not many, not four questions. There were only two questions based on the set. Okay. So again, maybe 4 minutes into the set and could have solved it. Could have solved two questions here. So maybe 10 questions earlier we counted. Two more questions. That is 12 questions. Okay, 12 question was easily manageable by an average student. 12 question would mean 36 marks, right, guys? So now let us look at where does 36 marks stands in this paper. So obviously 100 percentiler would be someone probably could attempt 21 questions except the second set maybe. And it was, here it was possible because there was no trick question involved here. There was no trick question. You solve the set, you are through. You solve one set, you get 4 marks. You solve one set, you get 4 marks. Sorry, you get 3 marks per question. 99 percentile would be somewhere at 40 marks, somewhere around 40 marks. Okay. Probably 16 question attempt, maybe 14 correct and 2 wrong. That gives you around 40 marks. 98 percentile would be somewhere around 31 marks. So now if you see, if you attempt 12 questions and get 12 correct, you are closer to 99 percentile. Somewhere 98.5 and 99 percentile. That would have been a good score in this paper. So guys, you need to understand, because the time duration has come down, your accuracy matters here. Okay, now if you look at the 95 percentile, okay, the only difference probably is 4 marks. That is basically attempting one more wrong question as compared to the one who have scored 98 percentile, guys. Okay, so accuracy, and that is what I explained in the EOM 7 as well. Accuracy will now play a very big role because it is only 40 minutes paper. If you look at 90 percentile, maybe 5 marks less than 95 percentile. Okay, let's say you still attempt 12 questions, get 3 wrong. Okay, so 9 and 3, that gives you 24. So that's just around 90 to 93 percentile. So 90 percentile around 22 marks, and 80 percentile would be somewhere around 17 odd marks. You crack 2 sets and you are through. You are above 80 percentile if you crack 2 sets. Okay, so yes guys, that is it. So now let me hand this over to Shibam sir for the quant analysis. All over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Is my voice reaching through clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live analysis of quant section EOM 8 as per the new pattern. So we'll proceed as usual, starting with topic distribution, question mapping with respect to easy, moderate, and difficult. We'll look at
Sir, you're not audible, sir. Sir,
looks like.
Sir, your voice is not audible. Your voice is not audible, sir.
Is it audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So this is how the question distribution looks like in EOM 3 quant section. There were 3 questions from number system, permutation combination, and quads and polygons each. 2 questions on time and work, 2 questions on allegation and mixture, and do we still have a voice issue, sir?
Yes, sir, a bit of issue.
Okay. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll change my connection. Yes, is it fine?
Yes, sir, better.
Better? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Please
Yeah.
let me know if there are further voice issues. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, sir. So let's continue. This is how the topic distribution in quant section looks like in EOM 8. There were 3 questions from number system, 3 questions from permutation combination, and 3 questions from chords and polygons. 2 questions from time and work, 2 questions from allegation and mixtures, and there were 2 questions which used to apply, which applied mixed concepts of set theory and number system, right? So there were application of both the concepts, set theory as well as number system, because you had to find out the numbers based on the units place, tens place, and hundreds place, and then you were supposed to form sets and do the required set operations also, which was involving A union B, comparing the number of elements in sets and etc. Okay. There was a question on polynomial, profit and loss, quadratic equations, special properties, surds and indices, time and distance, triangles, polygon, probability, progressions, and function, having representation of one question from each of these chapters. Yes, percentage, simple interest, compound interest, averages were completely absent. No question on coordinate geometry as well. But this is something that you can expect because the number of questions have reduced. Okay, so this is always something that you can expect because some chapters will be absent from the chapter from the paper. This is how the question mapping goes. There was a question on profit and loss, which was around, I think, the first or second question in the paper, where profit was expressed in terms of cost price and selling price. We have seen such question earlier also in the previous EOMs, probably EOM 7 if I'm not wrong. And these questions are pretty much straightforward. You have to find out selling price if the cost price is given. Okay. And finally, we need to calculate the selling price because profit was expressed in terms of selling price and cost price. The other question was based on polynomials, which which had application of remainder theorem. A polynomial was given and we were to divide it by x minus 2. So this was a question on basic algebra where if you want to divide a polynomial by x minus 2, you simply have to substitute x is equal to 2 and find out the value of the expression. That was very easy question. There was a question on numbers where sum of factors of n square was required. Okay, it might took around 30 seconds for us to realize that the number is a prime number. And once you realize that the number is a prime number, it takes another 30 seconds more to find out the sum of factors of n square. So all in all, it requires 1 minute and you can answer this question successfully. There was a quadratic equation based question where the curve was crossing x-axis. Right, so it was basically a graph-driven question where the curve was crossing x-axis at certain point initially, and the minimum point was also given. Now we just need to understand that the minimum point should be the average of the two solution. If we can understand that, we can find out the second point where the curve crosses x-axis very easily. There was a usual question on rationalization from surds and indices. This was again an extremely easy and straightforward question. You should have solved this. There was a set-based question here. A set was given on time and work, where certain project was supposed to be completed in certain timeline, and the remuneration for the project was also decided to be 30 lakhs. But later on, it turned out that the project will cost around 34 lakhs. So entire work will need to be recalculated. The entire time required would need to be recalculated. And there was some penalty on the extension of the deadline. So this again was an easy question because you just had to equate like 30 lakhs is this much work. So 34 lakhs is how much. And then you can find out the time required. You can find out the deadline extension and the penalty accordingly. There was a question based on permutation and combination where a group of married couple, if I remember correctly, there were 4 married couples given, 3 divorced couples were given, and 3 bachelors were given. And we had to find out the number of ways of selecting a team of 5 where major members were married members. Okay, so this was an easy question if you get your combinations right. Yes, this was the set I was mentioning earlier. This was a set of approximately 3 questions, if I'm not wrong. Okay, where there were 4 sets to be made. One had the unit place fixed as 2. Second had that its tens place fixed at 2. Third number had the hundreds place fixed at 2. And the fourth is a set of number where the digital summation of the number is the digital summation of different digits in the number would be 2. So we had to form 4 sets here. And the first question, which was based on finding out the number of elements in A union B, that was an easy question because it is simply number of elements in A plus B minus the number of elements in A intersection B. So according to me, these are the easy questions from this paper. Yes, there are comparatively lesser number of questions in this section compared to EOM 7 because this paper was comparatively tougher when you compare that with EOM 7. Okay, we'll discuss that when we reach the percentiles and score section. Question mapping when it goes to moderate questions. There was a question based on number system where HCF of 2 numbers was given, that was 10. LCM was 6300. Now I could have put this question into easy category, but the only reason why am I putting it in moderate category, because look at the LCM. LCM is 6300. So even if you take X into Y, that comes to 630. Okay, because you have to divide by HCF, which is 10. So X into Y is 630, and you have to make a lot of combination to be able to find out co-prime pairs. Okay, and that is why it might require some time, some effort, and that's why a moderate level question. A question on chords and polygons was given where length of diagonals of parallelogram was to be calculated. Okay, now if you realize that you had to use Apollonius theorem and not Pythagoras theorem, this was an easy question. But it takes time for us to recognize that we had to use Apollonius theorem and not Pythagoras, because when it comes to parallelogram, diagonals are surely not perpendicular. So Pythagoras is out of question, right? And if you remember that the diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other, then you could have taken Apollonius theorem and solved this question. There was a question on alligation and mixture where a repetitive replacement was given on milk and water. There were 2 successive withdrawals of milk, 20% each, and then it was a 40% replacement. This was again a moderate level question because we have seen such kind of questions earlier also. This was a routine question except for the last replacement, which was of 40%. Again, the same question, the same set, which was based on the completion of project on time. The question where the earlier estimation of the remuneration was 30 lakhs, which later on turned out to be 34 lakhs. So in order to complete the project on time, yes, we require certain number of men more. Okay, so there were 4 options given that which combination of men should you try to get the work completed in the required time, right? Why am I rating it as moderate question? Because you have to try 4 options, and the correct answer was, I think, the 4th option. So you have to prove that the first 3 options were wrong, and that is why it might take some time. There was a question, again, this was from the same set, which I discussed earlier, the married couple, divorced couple, and bachelors, right? This particular question can fall into moderate level question because we had to find out the probability where we end up selecting the right combination from divorced couple. There was one condition that if you selected 2 members from divorced couple, they should not be from the same couple. Okay, so what is the probability that we follow this condition and get the pair of the divorced couple right? There was a question based on finding out the domain of the function. So we should realize that the denominator should not be 0. Moreover, modulus x, if you follow the definition of modulus x, which is that is equal to x if x is positive, and that will be minus x if x is negative. So if you understand this definition and apply it over here, you can solve this question. Now comes questions which are moderate but time consuming. So there was a question on special property where integral solutions of linear equation were required. The question was 7x plus 8y is equal to 2020, which is 2020. And this question was time consuming question because we had to crack the first solution and find out the number of terms also. Again, a question from the same set, married, divorced, and bachelors. Okay, so there was the 3rd question from this set where a typical question was given where the divorced couples were required, but their number was less than 50% of the total number of individuals who are selected, right? So this required making of 3 cases, and you have to get all the 3 cases right to be able to get the final summation right. So according to me, this was a time-consuming question because it takes time to make 3 cases. A question on number of elements of A which are multiples of 3. Again, this was same questions. This was a question from same set where we had to form 4 sets first of all, which is A, B, C, D. And we have to find out here that how many elements of A are multiples of 3. So this is again a moderate but time consuming question, I can say, because we have to apply the progression formula here as well. Quads and polygons, there was a question on similar rectangles. So 2 rectangles having their ratio of length to breadth should be equal because they are similar rectangles. And finally, we have to make combinations where xy equal to 3600. And we have to find out the closest pair of xy equal to 3600. That takes some time to figure it out. And that's why this is a time consuming question. Permutation combination, there was one question based on weights. There were different weights given here, 2 kg, 3 kg, 5 kg, and 7 kg. Okay, and we have to find out how many combinations can we make or how many different weights can we measure given provided the weights are 2, 3, 5, and 7. So what you have to do is you have to find out the highest weight that can be measured and the lowest weight that can be measured. So the highest will be 17, which is 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7. And the lowest would be 2, which is the lowest of the weight. And between 2 and 17, we have to check for every combination, whether 2 is possible, whether 3 is possible, whether 15 is possible, 16 is possible, 17 is possible. So this requires some time to figure out all the right combinations. And finally, we come to question mapping of difficult level questions. There were good number of questions in this part also. There was first question on time and distance, which was based on escalator, where 2 people were traveling on the escalator with a speed of with a ratio of the speed being 5:3. And this a lot of students would find difficult because they would have hardly come across such kind of questions in past. There was a question based on triangle where AB and BC, 2 chords of the circle were given. Apparently, it looked like a question on circle where 2 chords were given. But the concept that was applicable here was a concept of triangle. So to me, it's really smart question making here, right? Because they are confusing you in terms of chords A, B, B, C. They're confusing you in terms of the perpendicular distance. But when you look at the solution, you will come to realize that this question can be solved using ABC by 4R. So it's a really good question. There was a question on alligation and mixture where maximum concentration of milk was supposed to be calculated, and there were no numbers given in the question. All the variables in terms of X was given. So according to me, this will be a difficult question because first thing, the value is not given. So secondly, and second thing is the maximum concentration has to be calculated. A question based on set and numbers. Once again, the question from the same set where we're supposed to form 4 sets, A, B, C, D, right? This is the third question from the same set. Here we had to find out which set had the maximum number of elements, right? Now let me tell you, forming set A, B, and C were easy here, but forming set D was tricky, which was based on the digital sum of the number. Okay, so that is why it will be difficult to find out which set had the maximum number of elements, because the formation of set D was little challenging for the students. A question on chords and polygons where quadrilateral was inscribed in a circle. Finally, when you inscribe the quadrilateral inside a circle, you'll realize that this is a trapezium. And because it is in a circle, it's a cyclic trapezium, so it's an isosceles trapezium. And then we had to also apply the perpendicular distance from center to the chord, right? So an application of question which was based on AP and GP, where the first 3 terms were in AP, the last 3 terms were. Moreover, the first and last terms were by the standard approach of assuming the middle term first, then taking the difference as D and minus D. So if you just go by the book, you should be able to solve eventually. You should be eventually able to solve the question. Okay, you will reach till the end finally. But this requires a lot of calculation in between, and that is why I am rating it as a difficult question. So let's summarize the question mapping part. We have seen 8 questions in the easy section, 6 questions in the moderate section, 5 questions in moderate and time consuming section, and 6 questions in the difficult level. Okay. Now, as usual, we expect you to solve most of the easy question, almost all of them. So the expected number of attempts out of the first 8 will be 7. Moderate question, we still expect you to solve around 75% of those. And that's why 4 questions can be attempted from this part. Moderate but time consuming, yes, certain questions will really require a lot of time to make different number of cases that were involved in the question. And that is why we expect you to solve around 2 questions out of these 5. And from difficult also, if you can solve 2, right, that makes your expected attempt reach 15 out of 25. And based on these expected attempts, if you look at the expected scores and percentiles, so first is expected attempts, which is 15. Expected accuracy somewhere in the range of 80 to 85%, and therefore around 12 to 13 of these attempts can be correct. 3 incorrect, 2 to 3 incorrect. That makes you reach 35 as an expected score, and that 35 should be our 98 percentile. If you are targeting higher scores than 98 percentile, then 99 is available at 41 and 100 percentile will be at 55. If you look at the lower percentile than 98, which is 95, available at 31 marks, 90 is at 27, and 80 is at 18 marks. So if you just get the, if you can just see the net correct, which is required to get 80 and 90 percentile, we'll see that there are only 6 net correct required to get 80 percentile and 9 net correct required to get 90 percentile out of 25. And this is within the time limits of 40 minutes. Yes, we're done with quant section analysis. I'll request Vijita madam to take over with verbal section analysis. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, sir. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to this late night analysis. I'm sure you've been waiting for quite some time. It's been a couple of days as well. For the ones who actually took this test very early, this might be, long wait. But I think you have very good reason to be happy about this mock, the VARC sectional of this mock. It was meant to be different, okay? It was meant to be very different, and you will find that it has been different. I'm sure all of you are pretty pleased with your scores. If not all of you, many of you are pretty pleased with your scores. The scores must have been improved. Now, one good thing about this mock was there was less reading to be done, correct? There wasn't such heavy reading to be done because you were actually looking at 25 questions in 40 minutes. That is what your last mock also was like. But then just 3 passages to be read with 5 questions per passage. And even these passages were not heavy. They were not lengthy. First of all, they were not lengthy. Second, they were not abstract. Yes, that poets, the passage about poetry might have been slightly abstract, but the others were fairly interesting reads. Okay, there was a lot of details and data given. So if you look at even the questions, the confusion points were more from the point of view of the details given in the questions. Okay, so slightly different paper, probably something that you haven't seen in the last couple of mocks in terms of both reading, in terms of option elimination, in terms of even question types. The way in which the questions were phrased was also very different. Okay, so I have reason to believe that all of you would have found this paper easier than the other ones. Okay, the best part of this entire mock was your VA questions, the non-RC sectional, which had 10 questions, all of which were non-heavy, non-abstract reading and easily established. I mean, some of you would have attempted all 10. If you had seen it smartly and figured out that the VA sectional is easy here, you would have attempted all 10 questions and probably would have even sat on a good accuracy, 70-80% accuracy out of, the 7-8 questions right. So a pretty different one. I'm sure you will have liked this paper. At least I don't see strong questions or strong doubts coming up, a pattern of doubts coming up. You seem to be fairly pleased with this. That's nice. Which is why, for once, we're going to regard the VARC sectional as not moderate to difficult, but moderate, right? It was actually moderate, okay? The first one, easy read, because, the first line itself establishes what the entire passage is talking about, that the city of Charlotte, right, is as one of America's great success stories of urbanization and how it, embraced development, etc. 480 words. That's really short. 480 words. 5 questions. There were 2 inference questions. There was one sort of, weakening question, but you could actually easily weaken it, right? The data was kind of given in the passage. You just had to, filter it out from the passage. So now what do we mean by marking all this difficult? They're actually moderate to difficult. I don't think there is this assumption question, because that's, you're not accustomed to identifying assumption in RCs, very often. You haven't done that often. And that was an assumption, which of the following are assumptions that the author includes, except. So that's why it's been rated very difficult. But people who clearly understand assumptions would have got this right. Okay, itna bhi deadly nahi tha. It's been rated very difficult because this is probably the first assumption question you are coming across in your EOMs, and people who are not expecting this or cannot relate to assumptions in RCs would have regarded this difficult. Otherwise, that's also doable. Now, all these difficult questions, they're actually moderate to difficult. They can't really be classified as difficult, but nor can you classify it as, an easy to moderate or just a moderate one, because they were all based on the details given in the passage. Even the options confused you with slight details. But if your reading of the passage was clear, understanding was clear, and I have strong reason to believe कि आपके passage reading and understanding should have been fine, particularly the first 2, because they're easy to read. You just have to come back, with for every option, perhaps for every 1 or 2 option, you have to come back to the data given in the passage and revisit it. So that is the difficulty here. Otherwise, it is not difficult in terms of some abstraction there. You don't understand the option, you don't understand the question, you don't understand the lines given in the passage. Aisa kuch nahi hai, right? So thoda time consuming, you had to come back, search for the details. The details were, quite a bit. Okay, that's why I call it very different. Even this one, the feminism one, the portrayal of women in fairy tales, एक तो interesting read भी है, you relate to it easily. So definitely not difficult. Now, what was difficult there? There were multiple viewpoints. Somebody else was quoting something, then the author took a stand, and then he quotes somebody else. So, that back and forth kind of, idea, the change in idea, different ideas coming in, that might have been slightly confusing. But again, if you understood the main point, and then you looked at the question, you came back to the answer, you came back to the details in the passage, read those lines clearly, eliminated the options, nothing is difficult, right? You could have got all of them right. So 520 words, that's definitely not much. And a main idea question, one strengthened. So you'll find a lot of CR coming in slowly, correct? It's not that CR has been completely absent in CAT papers in the last few years. Last year is an example. Last year, we clearly had 2 strengthened questions and 2 weakened questions each slot. One strengthened question. So 2, when I said 2 strengthened, I meant 2 strengthened totally, morning and afternoon. 1 strengthened each and 2 weakened questions each. Okay, morning and afternoon slots. So then, yes, critical reasoning is important. There was a question that, also expected you to look at an assumption. So slowly you will find that, yes, critical reasoning is also important. You better equip yourself to understanding, strengthening, weakening in passages too. So a strengthen coming in here, and then the others are inference. A lot of inferences here. So if at all something has been marked difficult, it is largely because you had to go back to the passage and look at the details. It was not so much dependent on, abstraction or anything else. than on your ability to scan for the details. So I'll still regard these questions as moderate to difficult. Nothing was really very difficult other than that assumption question. Art and literature, what is poetry? Maybe of the three passages, this one might have been slightly confusing because there were a lot of ideas here, you know, from writing onwards. Then you move to what is the you know, author speaks of what poetry generally is, and then what he experiences when he writes poetry. So not very easy passage, correct? But surprisingly, the questions are fairly okay, right? There was that very easy, you know, objective of writing given in the first or second line. So the moment you started reading the passage, that word writing and the objective of writing would have stood out, right? So that was easy. There was that one except detail question, specific detail question, that was also easy. One logical continuation, a little difficult, but if you eliminate the options again, there's nothing else that fits in which relates to the discussion of that last paragraph, but that, I think that's option one. So again, considered difficult only because you had to eliminate. If you carefully eliminated, if you read the passage correctly, carefully, you could do that. The others, there was that further application question too, which, that metaphor, slightly, unusual, identifying or figuring out which metaphor relates to this. But then that also you could do if you eliminated the options, which is why it's marked as moderate. So surprisingly, a difficult passage, okay, 500 words, but easy questions. So where the passage is difficult, you find questions are easy. In fact, one is a sitter. Where the passage is, you know, fairly easy reads, right, which you can relate to, you find questions are a little more challenging, okay? Actually, you could take all three passages. I don't think, you know, in this 40 minutes, in a matter of about 25 to 30 minutes, you could take all passages, all three of them. Maybe leave out a question here and there. Perhaps if you found that assumption question tough, you could leave that. Ekat inferences, maybe you find that challenging, you could leave that. But overall, I feel you could have taken all three passages. It's a matter of 1,500 words, close to less than 1,500 words put together. Now that is something you can definitely manage in a 10 minutes, 1,500 words, 10 to 15 minutes of reading, and then the questions, you know, not challenging. But that would also mean that you ended up compromising on the VA section, because if you only kept 10 minutes or 8 minutes or 9 minutes for the VA section, that being such an easy one, so agar aapke selection at the start, if that selection and if that quick assessment of the paper that we say that you do in a 2 or 3 minutes, you know, a quick look at what is there in the paper, to be surprised, pleasantly surprised that there are only 3 passages, and then to find that you have easy VA sectional, that is important. So if you had identified that, this would have been a big gold mine for you. As I told you, it's quite possible that you get everything right. The bit of challenge came in the summary, wherein the options had to be carefully eliminated. The language was easy to moderate of all 3 question types. The ones that have been regarded difficult, as I told you, summary, the options were tricky. Out of context, there was that one question which was slightly difficult because it had slightly abstract language. Otherwise, parajumbling was so easy. You know, they were all conversations, narratives. Kuch na kuch to clues. You know, imagine finding a parajumble that is marked as easy. So definitely a good one. You could have easily managed 6 to 7 questions here, even more. Okay, if you chose correctly and invested time wisely. Okay, so overall, what does it look like? Okay, though we have these 4 levels this time: easy, some sitter type questions, 2 of them; moderate, 10 questions; moderate to difficult. You know, there are very few of them that were actually difficult. Okay, most of them are moderate to difficult. As I told you, if you went back to the passage and checked the details, you would mark them as moderate. Very difficult, you know, just that assumption question marked very difficult because it was unusual and new for you. Now, so what is our expectation? I'm sure, you know, some of you will be surprised, but quite a few of you would have reached this level. 17 questions, expected attempts, with an accuracy of about 80%. we're looking at a score of 41. Now, 41 for 98 percentile, okay? Let's look at what it looks like for the rest of it. So 95 is 36, a net score of 36. 36 gives you a 95, a difference of maybe about 2 questions. And look at this jumps in percentiles. 33 is a 90, 1 question more is a 95, 5 percentile more. Look at how careful your selection and your accuracy is expected to be. 28, which is 2 questions, maybe 2 questions less, is an 80 percentile. 2 questions more is a 10 percentile jump. 1 question more is another 5 percentiles jump. 41 is 98, we said, another 2 or 3 questions, and you are sitting at a 99 percentile. Of course, 99 to 100 is a vast difference. But 63 is what, 21, a net score of 21. Now that is rather high because it was quite possible for a good student to get a 10 questions correct in VA, all 10 correct, or maybe make 1 error there, and maybe make 1 or 2 or 3 errors, max 3 errors in RC questions. So yes, your 100 percentile score would definitely shoot up. And that's why you're talking of 63 plus, 63 and above, okay? Let's look at what the overall percentiles look like. So let's start with 80 percentile, a score of 28 in VARC, a score of 18 in QA, pretty low that is, a score of DILR, a score of 17 in DILR, and a total of 54 fetches you an 80 percentile overall. A score of 33 in VARC, 27 in QA, 22 in DILR, and a total of 72 fetches you a 90 percentile. A score of 36 in VARC, 31 in QA, 27 in DILR, a total of 81 fetches you a 95 percentile. 41 in VARC, 35 in QA, 31 in DILR, and 100, a total of 100 fetches you a 98 percentile. 47 in VARC, 41 in QA, 40 in DILR, and a total of 106 fetches you a 99 percentile. A total of 144 with a 57 in DILR, a 57 in QA, and a 63 in VARC. That's pretty, you know, that speaks for itself that VARC was the easy section here. Gives you a 100 percentile. 144 and above fetches you a 100 percentile. All right, so that is it from us. I hope you had a good time with this. So this was your second new pattern mock, and it's definitely from, I think, VARC perspective, you would have been pleasantly surprised, right? I hope this was good and it gives you good insights into your strategy. So thank you everyone and good night. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you.